Hello. Today we're going to go over the concept of making an open source project more accessible to machine agents, as well as how to do it in my project. So what we have here, if we scroll down, is this concept of making the project accessible to large language models. So what we're doing here is we're taking this AGENTS.md file and referencing other machine-readable documentation within my project. And the reason for this is because most open source projects, they have to make the case for why it is worth investing any time in them in the first place. For my project, for instance, we have 7 documents as well as a video and 2 Python source files to go through in order for you to really get an understanding of where the project is at. And through using this agents file, we can develop some sort of bridge and some formal live conversation for a chatbot for you to be able to understand without parsing 7 articles, watching an 11.5-minute video, and going through 2 source files. So let's look at what the agents.md file actually is. So as you can see here, all it's really doing is explaining to the machine agent, it's sort of like a prompt, to fill in the context of these files. It's also important to note that the file type here is pretty important. What this is a LaTeX file. It can be constructed into a PDF, but the reason I'm providing a LaTeX file here is so that it can be interpreted by the machine agent. PDF files cannot be interpreted. That's why I'm giving it the source file. But as you can see here, we have the file, the purpose, and the agent actions, how it should be interpreted with respect to all the other documentation. So how do we use this? Well, let's get into an example. First, let's go up to the GitHub pilot here, Copilot, and let's have a chat with it. Right now, we've got the agents.md already set up, but let's just remove that and go through it manually. So we're going to have to find what we're going through, and let's type out my project, Eric Robert Lawson, and then there's my organism core project. We're going to select that, and then we're going to select agents.md, and then we're going to go into the AI resources here, and we're going to select all the documents that we need to get all the context that we need. And I'm leaving out the read.md. So we're going to add these 11 resources together. And I'm going to type out, I am new to the project. I want to have a project overview to understand if I want to spend time on looking into it. Can you give me a project overview? And so with all of these resources and references linked up to each other, it's now going to go through and show exactly what this overview project really is. And if we go through this response, we can actually see what's going on here. We have, what does this project try to do at a high level? It tries to represent reasoning as an audible composable proof object. It provides Python prototypes. It argues that a dedicated domain-specific language is required, and it explores metatopics. The main artifact you'll want to read first, it gives you a list, and it'll give you an understanding of the practical status of maturity. Well, in my response, it did. But as you can see, this is really useful in onboarding new people to an open source project. And I could only imagine a world where every open source repo has this sort of accessibility route to it. Because the main problem that I have with engaging in open source repos is that I have to determine how much time I want to spend understanding the repo to determine if I even want to spend time on it at all. And with this process, we can eliminate the time and effort required to make that decision and make it much easier for anyone really to engage and contribute to your open source repo. So in conclusion, hopefully it is obvious why it is useful to have this agents.md file. It creates an accessible pathway for new people to be onboarded and understand how to engage with an open source repo. And hopefully you can go through and create your own agents.md to make your open source project more accessible to everyone else. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.